At her office party, my wife joked to her colleagues, "I'm raising a man-child, not a husband." She treated me like her underling for years, until the project I built sold for millions. Overnight, the control shifted, and she hated IT.my. Wife Sarah and I had been together for 8 years, married for 6. Back when we met, we were a team. I was in IT support, and she was in finance, and our salaries were pretty much on par. We split everything 50-50, made decisions together, and respected each other. I truly believed we had something real. The clinking of champagne flutes and forced laughter echoed around the brightly lit office. I stood awkwardly by the snack table, nursing a glass of sparkling cider. Office parties were never really my scene, but I always made an effort for Sarah. She was the star of her firm, a high-powered lawyer with a sharp mind and even sharper wit. I, on the other hand, I was me, a software developer, more comfortable behind a screen than schmoozing with corporate types. "He's adorable, Sarah, really," chirped Brenda from accounting, her voice laced with a sugary sweetness. That always grated on me. "You're so lucky to have a husband who's so supportive." Sarah laughed, a bright, tinkling sound that usually made my heart flutter. Tonight, it just felt brittle. Supportive is one word for it, Brenda. I prefer low maintenance. Honestly, sometimes I feel like I'm raising a man-child, not a husband. A ripple of laughter spread through the small group gathered around her. My smile faltered. I knew Sarah often joked about my domestic ineptitude, how I couldn't cook to save my life, how laundry mysteriously piled up in the corner of the bedroom, how I sometimes forgot to put the toilet seat down. It was always framed as playful banter, a light-hearted ribbing that I usually brushed off with a self-deprecating grin. But hearing it amplified in this setting, in front of her colleagues, stung. It felt like a public confirmation of my inadequacies. I took a larger gulp of my cider, the fizz doing little to soothe the sudden dryness in my throat. I caught Sarah's eye across the room. She offered me a quick, apologetic smile, but the damage was done. The label had been applied, and I knew, with a sinking feeling, that it would stick. For years, our dynamic had been, skewed. Sarah was the breadwinner, the ambitious go-getter who navigated the cutthroat world of corporate law with grace and ferocity. I was the homebody, the dreamer who tinkered away on passion projects in his spare time. I wasn't lazy, not exactly. I contributed to the household, I just didn't bring in the big bucks. And somewhere along the way, that imbalance had subtly warped our relationship. Sarah's career had always been the priority. We'd moved cities for her job, planned vacations around her deadlines, and structured our lives to accommodate her demanding schedule. I'd always been happy to support her, proud of her achievements. But as the years passed, I noticed a subtle shift. The support started to feel like expectation. My opinions were often dismissed, my contributions minimized. I was subtly relegated to the role of, the man-child she'd just described. I finished my cider and slipped out onto the balcony, the cool night air a welcome relief from the stifling atmosphere inside. I looked up at the stars, trying to find some perspective. I loved Sarah, I truly did. But lately, I'd been feeling increasingly invisible, a shadow in the bright light of her success. The truth was, I hadn't always been this domesticated. Before Sarah, I'd been driven, ambitious in my own right. I'd even had a promising startup that fizzled out spectacularly, leaving me bruised and disillusioned. After that, I'd retreated, content to find a stable job and focus on smaller projects. Sarah had been a breath of fresh air, a whirlwind of energy and ambition that swept me off my feet. I'd fallen hard and fast, willing to do anything to support her dreams. But somewhere along the way, I'd lost sight of my own. I leaned against the railing, the city lights twinkling below. I had a confession to make, a secret I'd been harboring for months. I'd been working on a new project, a software application, that I believed could be revolutionary. It was a long shot, a gamble that I'd poured all my spare time and energy into. I hadn't told Sarah about it, not wanting to face her skepticism or, worse, her pity. It was a project born out of frustration, a desire to prove something, not just to her, but to myself. I needed to feel like I was more than just supportive, more than just a background character in her perfectly orchestrated life. The next few months were a blur of coding, debugging, and sleepless nights. I worked in the evenings after my day job, fueled by coffee and sheer determination. I devoured online tutorials, consulted with other developers, and relentlessly tested my creation. Slowly but surely, it started to take shape, a functional prototype that exceeded my wildest expectations. I still didn't tell Sarah. I was afraid. Afraid of failure, afraid of her judgment, afraid of disrupting the fragile equilibrium of our relationship. I knew she wouldn't understand the obsession, the all-consuming drive that had taken hold of me. She saw my coding as a hobby, a harmless pastime, not a potential career changer. Then came the breakthrough. A small tech blog picked up my project, writing a glowing review that highlighted its innovative features and potential impact. The article went viral. Suddenly, my inbox was flooded with emails from investors, venture capitalists, and even a few tech giants. I was stunned, overwhelmed, terrified. I finally told Sarah. Her reaction was complicated. Initially, she was thrilled, proud even. She peppered me with questions, wanting to know all the details. But as the reality of the situation sank in, I detected a subtle shift in her demeanor. The excitement faded, replaced by a guarded apprehension. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of meetings, negotiations, and legal paperwork. I was suddenly thrust into a world I barely understood, surrounded by high-powered executives and slick-talking lawyers. Sarah, of course, was in her element. She offered to help, to advise me on the legal aspects of the deals. I hesitated. I appreciated her offer, but I also felt a fierce protectiveness over my project. It was mine, my creation, my chance to finally step out of her shadow. I politely declined her offer, telling her I had a team of lawyers working on it. I saw a flicker of hurt in her eyes, but I pressed on. I needed to do this on my own. After weeks of intense negotiations, I finally signed a deal with a major tech company. The terms were staggering. They offered me millions for the rights to my project, along with a generous compensation package and a leadership position within their organization. Overnight, my life changed. I told Sarah the news over dinner. I expected elation, a celebration of our newfound success. Instead, I was met with a strained silence. "That's amazing," she said finally, her voice flat. "Amazing? Sarah, this is life-changing. We can pay off the mortgage, travel the world." I know, she interrupted, picking at her food. "It's just a lot to take in." The atmosphere was thick with unspoken tension. I could feel the shift, the subtle rebalancing of power that had occurred. I was no longer the man-child, the underling in our relationship. I was now her equal, maybe even her superior, at least in terms of financial success. And she hated it. The next few months were difficult. Sarah became increasingly distant, withdrawn. She worked longer hours, avoided spending time with me, and seemed to find fault with everything I did. The jokes about my domestic ineptitude stopped, replaced by a cold, simmering resentment. I tried to talk to her, to understand what was going on, but she brushed me off, saying she was just stressed about work. I knew that wasn't the whole truth. One evening, after a particularly tense dinner, I finally confronted her. "Sarah, what's going on? You've been acting so strange lately." She sighed, running a hand through her hair. "I don't know, okay? It's just, things are different now." "Different how?" "You know how?" she snapped. "You're suddenly this tech mogul. You're always busy, always on the phone. You're not the same person I married." "I'm still me, Sarah. I finally accomplished something. Isn't that what you always wanted for me? I wanted you to be happy, yes, but I didn't want you to outshine me." The words hung in the air, heavy with unspoken truth. It was out in the open now, the ugly secret that had been festering beneath the surface. "Outshine you?" I repeated, incredulous. "Is that what this is about? You're jealous." "Don't be ridiculous," she scoffed, but her eyes betrayed her. "Then what is it, Sarah? Why are you so unhappy?" She hesitated, then blurted out. "Because I don't know who I am anymore. For years, I've been the successful one, the one in control. And now you've taken that away from me." I stared at her, speechless. It was all so petty, so small-minded. I had expected her to be proud, to celebrate my success. Instead, she was consumed by insecurity and resentment. "I didn't take anything away from you, Sarah," I said softly. "You're still brilliant, still successful. This doesn't change who you are." "But it does," she insisted, her voice rising. "It changes everything. Our dynamic, our relationship, everything." I realized then that she was right. It had changed everything. The power balance had shifted, and she couldn't handle it. She had built her identity around being the dominant force in our relationship, and now that was threatened. We argued, late into the night, rehashing old grievances and airing long-held resentments. It was a painful, cathartic process, but ultimately, it didn't solve anything. We were too different, too entrenched in our respective roles. In the end, we decided to separate. The divorce was amicable, but heartbreaking. We divided our assets, said our goodbyes, and went our separate ways. It was the right decision, but it still stung. I had lost my wife, my best friend, the woman I had loved for so many years. I threw myself into my new job, working long hours, and immersing myself in the world of tech. I was successful, driven, and financially secure. But I was also lonely. I missed Sarah. I missed her wit, her intelligence, her unwavering support when she wasn't feeling threatened. I missed our life together, the comfortable routine we had built over the years. One evening, a few months after the divorce was finalized, I was working late in my office when I received an email from Sarah. It was a simple message, just a few lines. She said she had been thinking about me, about us. She admitted that she had been wrong, that she had let her insecurities get the best of her. She said she was proud of my accomplishments and that she missed me. I stared at the email for a long time, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't know what to do. I knew that getting back together would be complicated. We had a lot of baggage to unpack, a lot of wounds to heal. But I also knew that I still loved her. I decided to take a chance. I replied to her email, suggesting we meet for coffee. We met the following week at a small cafe near her office. It was awkward at first, but as we talked, the tension slowly eased. We apologized for our mistakes, we acknowledged our flaws, and we talked honestly about our feelings. We didn't magically solve all our problems that day, but we made a start. We agreed to take things slowly, to rebuild our relationship from the ground up. It wasn't easy. There were setbacks, arguments, and moments of doubt. But we persevered. We went to therapy, we learned to communicate more effectively, and we started to see each other as individuals, not just as roles in a relationship. Slowly but surely, we found our way back to each other. A year later, we remarried. It wasn't the same as the first time. We were different people now, more mature, more self-aware. We had learned from our mistakes, and we were determined to build a stronger, healthier relationship. I still worked in tech, and Sarah was still a lawyer. But our dynamic had changed. We were now equals, partners who supported each other's dreams and respected each other's individuality. I was no longer the man-child, and she was no longer the domineering breadwinner. We were just Sarah and me, two people who loved each other, flaws and all. Looking back, I realized that the office party, the joke that had stung so deeply, had been a turning point. It had forced me to confront my own insecurities, to rediscover my ambition, and to ultimately redefine my relationship with Sarah. It had been a painful journey, but it had led me to a place of greater understanding, greater love, and greater happiness. And for that, I was grateful. Because sometimes, it takes a crisis to reveal what truly matters in life. And sometimes, the greatest successes are born out of the ashes of failure. And sometimes, the most unexpected detours lead us to exactly where we were meant to be. Now the next interesting Reddit story. 3 hours before our wedding, my fiancée texted, "Damien's the one I truly love. I'm leaving with him." Instead of hiding in humiliation, I threw a party, with her own parents sitting proudly beside me. Not her. It wasn't an easy decision, obviously. My first instinct, after the initial wave of disbelief crashed over me, was to curl up into a ball and die. I mean, who wouldn't? Years of planning, countless hours agonizing over seating arrangements and floral arrangements, and a small fortune spent on, well, everything, all culminating in this spectacular, gut-wrenching rejection. It felt like the universe was playing a cruel joke, and I was the punchline. I stare at my phone, the screen reflecting the harsh fluorescent lights of the bridal suite. 3 hours. 3 hours until I'm supposed to be standing at the altar, reciting vows I painstakingly wrote, promising forever to a woman who, apparently, doesn't believe in forever with me. The text burns into my retinas. Damien's the one I truly love. I'm leaving with him. Damien. Damien. Of all the goddamn people in the world, it had to be Damien. My best man. My supposed friend. A wave of nausea washes over me. It claws its way up my throat, threatening to spill the mimosa I'd choked down moments before in an attempt to calm my nerves. Calm my nerves? I should have known. There was a reason my stomach churned like a washing machine on spin cycle. Intuition, that bitch. I clench my fists, nails digging into my palms. Humiliation. That's the first feeling that crashes over me. A tidal wave of shame threatening to drown me. Everyone's here. My family. Her family. Friends who flew in from across the country. This was supposed to be the happiest day of my life. Instead, it's shaping up to be the biggest public spectacle of the year. My initial instinct is to run, to disappear, to crawl into a hole and die. I imagine the whispers, the pointing fingers, the pitying glances, the horror. But then, something shifts. A spark of defiance flickers in the ashes of my ruined expectations. Why should I hide? Why should I let her actions define me? Why should I let Damien, that snake in the grass, win? No. I take a deep breath, trying to steady my trembling hands. I won't give them the satisfaction. I won't let their betrayal break me. An idea, crazy and audacious, begins to form in my mind. It's reckless, impulsive, and possibly the stupidest thing I've ever considered. But it's also liberating. I'm not hiding. I'm throwing a party. I grab my phone again, my fingers moving with a newfound sense of purpose. I need reinforcements. My first call is to Liam, my brother and fellow groomsman. He answers on the second ring, his voice already laced with pre-wedding excitement. Hey man, ready to get this show on the road? You sound a little tense. Liam, I say, my voice surprisingly steady. We have a problem. A big problem. I explain everything, keeping my voice low and even. I tell him about the text, about Damien, about the gut-wrenching betrayal. There's a long silence on the other end of the line. Then, Liam explodes. That too timing. I'm going to kill them both. Where are they? Liam, calm down. I interrupt, wincing at the sound of his outrage. Violence isn't the answer. Trust me. I have a better idea. I tell him my plan. He's hesitant at first, questioning my sanity, but eventually, he comes around. Liam's always been a sucker for a good underdog story. Okay, he says, his voice now filled with grim determination. I'm in. What do you need me to do? Next, I call Sarah, my best friend since kindergarten. She's practically family. She's also fiercely loyal and incredibly resourceful. Sarah, I say, skipping the pleasantries. I need your help. And I need it now. I relay the same story, bracing myself for her reaction. Sarah is not one to mince words. That's unbelievable, she says, her voice dripping with disbelief and anger. That bitch. And Damien. I always knew there was something shifty about him. Don't worry. I'm on my way. What can I do? I outline my plan again, emphasizing the need for discretion and speed. Consider it done, she says, her voice firm. I'll handle everything. Just try to stay calm. And don't do anything stupid. Too late. I mutter, but she's already hung up. With Liam and Sarah on board, I feel a surge of adrenaline. I can do this. I will do this. The next hour is a whirlwind of activity. Liam, ever the pragmatist, starts calling our friends, discreetly informing them of the situation and asking them to stick around. Sarah, meanwhile, is a force of nature. She commandeers the catering staff, redirects the flower arrangements, and somehow manages to transform the entire reception hall from a wedding venue into well, I'm not entirely sure what she's transforming it into, but I trust her implicitly. I, on the other hand, spend most of the time pacing back and forth, trying to keep my anxiety at bay. I rehearse what I'm going to say, how I'm going to explain the situation without completely losing my composure. The guests start to arrive, oblivious to the drama that's unfolding behind the scenes. They're dressed in their finest attire, their faces beaming with anticipation. I plaster on a smile, shaking hands and offering polite greetings, all the while feeling like a fraud. Her parents arrive. They look happy, excited. They hug me tightly, telling me how lucky I am to be marrying their daughter. The irony is almost unbearable. I lead them to their seats, my heart pounding in my chest. I can't keep this charade up for much longer. Finally, Sarah gives me the signal. She's gathered everyone's attention. The music has stopped, and all eyes are on me. I take a deep breath and step onto the makeshift stage. The room is silent, expectant. Good evening, everyone. I begin, my voice surprisingly steady. Thank you all for coming. As you know, today was supposed to be a wedding. Mine. A ripple of murmurs runs through the crowd. I can see the confusion on their faces. However, I continue. It seems there's been a slight change of plans. I pause, allowing the suspense to build. I can see her parents staring at me, their smiles beginning to falter. 3 hours before the ceremony, I say, my voice clear and strong. My fiancée sent me a text message. In it, she informed me that she was leaving me for my best man, Damien. A collective gasp fills the room. The silence that follows is deafening. I can see the shock and disbelief on their faces. Some people are whispering, others are staring at me with open mouths. Her parents look like they've been slapped. Now, I say, forcing a smile. Under normal circumstances, I suppose I should be devastated. Heartbroken, hiding in a dark room, wallowing in self-pity. I pause again, letting my words sink in. But, I continue. I've decided to take a different approach. Instead of letting their betrayal ruin my day, I've decided to celebrate. To celebrate life, love, and the fact that I dodged a bullet. A few tentative claps break the silence. Then, more and more people join in, until the room is filled with applause. I raise my glass. So, let's raise a toast. I say, my voice ringing with newfound confidence. To new beginnings. To unexpected twists of fate. And to never settling for second best. The crowd cheers, raising their glasses in unison. I take a sip of champagne, the bubbles tickling my nose. For the first time in hours, I feel a sense of relief. The party begins. The music starts up again, louder and more upbeat than before. People start dancing, laughing, and mingling. The atmosphere is electric. Her parents, surprisingly, are among the first to join in the festivities. They're clearly embarrassed and apologetic, but they also seem genuinely supportive. They tell me how sorry they are, how much they like me, and how they always suspected Damien was a jerk. I spend the rest of the evening surrounded by friends and family, feeling more loved and appreciated than I ever have before. People tell me how brave I am, how inspiring I am, how much they admire my strength. And you know what? I actually start to believe them. As the night wears on, I find myself laughing, dancing, and genuinely enjoying myself. I even catch the eye of a beautiful woman across the room, who smiles at me knowingly. Maybe, just maybe, this wasn't such a bad thing after all. The next few days are a blur. There are phone calls to make, cancellations to arrange, and a mountain of wedding-related paperwork to deal with. But through it all, I'm buoyed by the outpouring of support from my friends and family. Liam and Sarah are my rocks. They take care of everything, shielding me from the worst of the fallout and keeping my spirits up. They're the best friends a guy could ask for. Her parents are surprisingly helpful. They offer to take care of all the wedding expenses, and they even threaten to disown their daughter. I tell them that's not necessary, but I appreciate the sentiment. As for her, I haven't heard from her. And frankly, I don't want to. Damien, however, sends me a text message. It's a pathetic attempt at an apology. He claims he didn't mean for things to happen the way they did, that he was just swept away by his feelings. I delete the message without responding. He's not worth my time or energy. A week after the non-wedding, I'm sitting in my apartment, surrounded by boxes of wedding favors and floral arrangements. I'm feeling a little melancholy, but also strangely optimistic. I realize that I've been given a second chance, a chance to start over, a chance to find someone who truly deserves me. I decide to take a trip. I need to get away, clear my head, and figure out what I want to do with my life. I book a flight to Italy. I've always wanted to go, and now seems like the perfect time. 2 weeks later, I'm standing in Rome, gazing at the Colosseum. The sun is shining, the sky is blue, and I feel free. I spend the next few weeks exploring Italy, immersing myself in the culture and meeting new people. I eat delicious food, drink amazing wine, and learn to speak a few basic phrases in Italian. I even meet a beautiful Italian woman named Isabella. She's kind, intelligent, and funny. We spend hours talking, laughing, and exploring the city together. I'm not sure where things will go with Isabella, but I'm enjoying the moment. For the first time in a long time, I feel truly happy. When I return home, I'm a different person. I'm more confident, more independent, and more sure of myself. I realize that the wedding fiasco, as painful as it was was also a catalyst for change. It forced me to reevaluate my life, my relationships, and my priorities. I decided to make some changes. I quit my boring job and start my own business. I reconnect with old friends and make new ones. I start taking classes, learning new skills, and pursuing my passions. I become the person I always wanted to be. A year later, I'm at a party. It's a friend's birthday, and the room is filled with familiar faces. As I'm chatting with a group of friends, I see her walk in. She looks different, thinner, paler, and somehow sadder. She sees me too. Her eyes widen, and she hesitates for a moment. Then, she walks over to me. "Hi," she says, her voice barely a whisper. "Hello," I reply, my voice calm and even. We stand there in silence for a moment, the tension in the air palpable. I wanted to apologize," she says, her voice trembling. "For everything. I know I hurt you. I was young and stupid, and I made a mistake." I look at her, trying to gauge her sincerity. I can see the regret in her eyes. "I accept your apology," I say finally, "but that doesn't change what happened." "I know," she says, her voice barely audible. I wanted you to know that I'm sorry." "I appreciate that," I say. We stand there in silence again. Then, she turns and walks away. I watch her go, feeling a strange mixture of pity and relief. I'm glad she apologized, but I also know that I can never forgive her. A few minutes later, Isabella walks over to me. She puts her arm around my waist and smiles. "Who was that?" she asks. "No one important," I say, smiling back at her. "Just someone from my past." I kiss her on the forehead and pull her close. I realize that I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm happy, I'm loved, and I'm finally free. The band starts playing our song, and Isabella and I start to dance. As we sway to the music, I look around the room, taking in the faces of my friends and family. I realize that I'm surrounded by love, and that's all that matters. The wedding that wasn't was the best thing that ever happened to me. It taught me to be strong, to be resilient, and to never settle for anything less than I deserve. And for that, I'm grateful. I hold Isabella tighter, and we continue to dance, lost in the music and the moment. This is my life, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. Years pass. Isabella and I build a life together. We travel the world, start a family, and support each other through thick and thin. We learn to navigate the challenges of marriage and parenthood, always remembering the lessons I learned from my past. We often joke about the non-wedding, as we call it. It's become a part of our story, a reminder of how far I've come and how lucky I am to have found her. One day, I receive an invitation in the mail. It's a wedding invitation. I open it, my heart pounding in my chest. The names on the invitation are her and Damien. I stare at the invitation, a wave of emotions washing over me. Shock, disbelief, and amusement. I show the invitation to Isabella. She raises an eyebrow and smiles. "Well," she says, "are we going?" I consider it for a moment. Part of me wants to go, just to see them, to see how their life turned out. But another part of me knows that it's not worth my time or energy. "No," I say finally. "We're not going." I toss the invitation in the trash. It's a symbol of a past that I've moved on from. I have a family, a loving wife, and a fulfilling life. I don't need to dwell on what could have been. I kiss Isabella and hug my children. I'm grateful for everything I have. Later that day, I receive a text message. It's from an unknown number. "I know you got the invitation," the message reads. "I just wanted you to know that I'm happy." We're happy. I delete the message without responding. I don't need her validation. I don't need her approval. I'm happy too. And that's all that matters. I spend the rest of the day with my family, laughing, playing, and creating memories. As I tuck my children into bed that night, I realize how much my life has changed. I'm no longer the naive, heartbroken man who was left at the altar. I'm a husband, a father, and a successful businessman. I'm strong, resilient, and confident. And I owe it all to the wedding that wasn't. It was the worst day of my life, but it was also the best. It taught me to be true to myself, to never settle for anything less than I deserve, and to always believe in the power of love. I kiss my children goodnight and turn off the lights. I walk back to my bedroom, where Isabella is waiting for me. She smiles when she sees me. "Everything okay?" she asks. "Everything's perfect," I say, wrapping my arms around her. We hold each other close, feeling the warmth and comfort of our love. I know that we'll face challenges in the future, but I also know that we'll face them together. We're a team. We're a family. And we're unbreakable. As I drift off to sleep, I think about the wedding that wasn't. I think about the pain, the betrayal, and the humiliation. But I also think about the strength, the resilience, and the love that emerged from the ashes. And I smile. Because in the end, I wouldn't trade it for anything. It made me who I am today. And I'm grateful for that.